Hey Sibs. So, a month or so ago I downloaded both of the party platforms for the Democratic and Republican parties, and I've been reading them and I've highlighted them and I've made note cards and just regular notes, and I finally decided that there was just too much to cover for me to really do the sort of point-by-point, comparison of policies that I was hoping to do. It's just too much. But, so in this video I'm just going to do a general sort of overview of the two parties' positions, and then I'm going to plan to do some specific videos later, because I do have a lot of things I want to say. I just couldn't fit them into this video. So let's start with domestic policy. The Democratic platform talks about lots of programs to decrease hunger and poverty, increase access to health care, provide better education, reduce racism and sexism and other forms of unfair bias, protect our environment, and address climate change problems. I wanted to compare their plans with what was in the Republican platform, and I was really puzzled at first because I just couldn't figure out what the Republican plans were. Every issue they seem to be saying basically the same thing. They said the Democrats have pushed, or plan to push, through Congress a plan that is too expensive, imposes too much regulation on business and local governments, hurts economic growth, and doesn't work anyway. This program must be scaled back and eliminated immediately. What was missing was a description of what the Republicans would like to do instead. I had nothing to compare. I finally realized that the Republicans just didn't think that government should be doing anything about these topics at all. Instead, the Republican platform talks a lot about a return to constitutional government. Its preamble states, "We believe the Constitution was written not as a flexible document, but as our enduring covenant. It must be preserved uncompromised for future generations." One of the major sections is called A Rebirth of Constitutional Government. It affirms that all legislation, regulation, and official actions must conform to the Constitution's original meaning as understood at the time the language was adopted. It further asserts that man-made laws must be consistent with a moral law recognized as the laws of nature and of nature's God. On this basis, the party rejects Supreme Court decisions requiring marriage equality and legalizing abortion, among other things. These decisions were made by democratically appointed judges who, they say, twisted the meaning of the Constitution to meet their personal agendas, and we must pass constitutional amendments against them. The bureaucratic agencies set up by decades of democratic legislation can set policies that have the force of law, effectively giving the executive branch powers that should belong only to the legislative branch. The Obama administration in particular has entered into treaties such as the UN-Iran deal and the Paris Climate Change Accords without the constitutionally required two-thirds approval by the Senate. As a result, these deals are not binding. I did a research on this last one because I wondered how these treaties could happen if they were unconstitutional. The gist of it is that existing treaties and acts of Congress give the President the authority to make some types of executive agreements with other nations that are not considered to be treaties themselves and do not require the two-thirds vote of the Senate. In the case of the Iran deal, the President worked through the UN, effectively going over the heads of the Senate. And that brings us to foreign policy. Neither platform goes into a lot of detail on this topic, but there is a fundamental difference in tone. The Republican platform focuses on putting America first. Foreign aid should always be based on what serves American interests. All trade deals that are not favorable to the U.S. must be renegotiated. U.S. cooperation with international groups like the UN and NATO must be reconsidered unless America starts getting more benefit from them. We should build up and maintain the most powerful military in the world so that we don't need alliances. The way they say this is they say peace through strength. The Democratic platform focuses on strengthening our alliances and cooperating with the other nations. It also calls for a strong military, but is concerned more with protecting our allies as well as ourselves than the Republicans' platform. The Democrats describe addressing problems of terrorism, hunger, poverty, disease, climate change, education, and inequality on a global scale in partnership with other nations. And when the world is more secure, we are more secure, is their point of view. I think I can now summarize the beliefs of the two parties as stated on these platforms. The Republican Party believes that enlightened self-interest with minimal limitations will ensure the greatest good for everyone. The government's job is primarily to protect its citizens' rights against outsiders, each other, and the government itself. Protection against outsiders is achieved through a strong military and immigration restrictions. Citizens are protected against each other by the police and laws against violence and theft and by civil lawsuits. Citizens' rights are protected from the government by the Constitution and the rights it outlines. Our responsibility as a nation is to look out for our own interests. The Democratic Party believes that it is the government's job to improve the lives of the people. This includes protecting its citizens, as I've just described, but isn't limited to that. The government must look at the big picture and take action to solve big problems that cannot be solved on the small scale by people acting in their own interest, such as reducing poverty and racism and guarding against climate change. Our responsibility as a nation is to work with other countries to make the whole world a better place. The two parties also differ significantly on how they interpret the rights defined in the Constitution, leading to a sharp divide between them on the topics of marriage equality and abortion. I think that topic deserves a video of its own, though, so I won't say more about it right now. These documents are long, and I've had to leave out nearly all of the details, so I encourage you to go and read them yourselves and post comments with your opinions. I've done my best to present both sides objectively, but I'm sure my own opinion still shows. I'll show it more fully in later videos on specific topics. Until then, stay shiny.